This is Prime Time on Money FM 89.3. I'm Howie Lim. Now, the world's facing an unprecedented crisis from COVID-19. What initially started as a health crisis has rapidly evolved into one of the world's worst economic crises in history. For many SMEs, the challenge is to hurdle not just one crisis, but a series of crises. Joining us today is Kevin Fitzgerald, Managing Director Asia at Xero. Kevin, always a pleasure.
Howie, it's great to see you. Thank you for having me on again.
So the last time we spoke, it was about those challenges that SMEs are facing. Let's get out of the doom and gloom, do something about it. What are the strategies they can employ during this time?
Yeah, and you're right. Like, it is really time to think about next year and next calendar year and think ahead. And really, some of the strategies that we've been hearing from SMEs and trying to teach them about options is making sure that they're on top of all company and financial information, because they're probably in a situation where it needs to go into planning. They need to understand the financial health of their business in the short term, but also the medium term. And I think, as we were saying the last time, I feel like SMEs were confined to the present. And I believe now it's about the future. So we know the current state of play. We know it's really challenging, but what do we need to do? And I think it's the action points that are really important. So having really good information, so you can speak to your bank or your financier to make sure that your cash flow is really healthy. And I think one of the things, Howie, that we've been observing is keeping the relationship with your customers. Making sure that you have a really strong emotional connection with your customer. Because if you're, say, an F&B in the CBD, like, you don't have the foot traffic anymore. You're really trying to stay in touch with your customers. And how do you actually keep the relationship? Like, it's got to go deeper than just providing a transaction or a service or a one-off product. And we're really encouraging SMEs to think about, how do you stay in touch with your customer? How do you make sure that they know that you're still around and you're still here for the future? Because I think some customers are thinking that as well. And I think as a lot of SMEs have gone digital, they've brought their advertising digital. So there's actually a bit more competition. So you've got to make sure that you're in there and you're telling your customers that, hey, we're still here. Thank you for the business over the years. This is what we're going to do next year. And I think that's a really key thing for SMEs to think about.
Do they have to take into consideration where they are on their journey? Some might still be in survival mode, trying to deal with that sort of cash flow bottleneck maybe. Some have that squared away, maybe thinking about expansion. Some are maybe cruising, I'll keep my head down, let this whole thing pass, and then get a move on.
Yeah, and every business, I think, needs to do it. And we do it ourselves. Like, we ask our team, where do you think we are? Do you think we're in survival mode, expansion, or cruising? And I think an SME, the boss, needs to speak to his leadership team, his or her leadership team, and say, hey, where do you think we are right now? Because depending on where everybody in the team believes we are, that's only going to help us take the first step next. And like, strategies can be different for each of those scenarios. So if you're in survival mode, it's really hard to think about transformation and change. But if you're in expansion mode, that's the best time to do it. But if you're in cruising mode, you got to be really careful. Like, as I said before, like, there's so much competition now because everybody's online. People are competing for the attention of consumers. And I think the last time I said, like, I've been buying more stuff on Instagram, and I never did that before. And
regardless of whether you need it.
Regardless, I'm an easy consumer, but it's because they caught my attention. Yeah, and I think that's been really interesting. I kind of was thinking about that, and I was like, how does an SME who had customers and consumers compete with this new style, that's out there, and they're popping up in our ads on our social media. They're popping up on those little screens that we carry around with us all the time. So really, if you're in cruising mode, well done. But you probably need to really think about 2021 very quickly.
What needs to be prioritized in that set of strategies you just outlined for us? Should it be prioritized? What's at the top and so on?
Yeah, and I think if I put my accounting hat on, which I was for a long time, protecting your revenue and protecting your customer is key. So making sure you digitize that part of your business. And something I did recently with an SME in Singapore was we drew a circle and we just said, you're in the middle, right? This is your world. And your consumers are here. Your bank is here. The government are here. Your competitors are here. Your supply chain. Which one of them is digitizing really quickly? And which one are you making the choice to digitize, or are they making the choice and forcing you to become more digital? Because consumers want to pay quickly. They want to have a really nice experience online. So you have to think about how can we ensure that we have great digital foundations to engage with our customers. The second part of that is how do we ensure that we have great digital foundations for our business operations? And how do we reduce the cost that we're carrying in our business? And the SME that I spoke to, like they were saying, oh, well, it sounds like you want to cut costs. And I was like, no, an SME has a fixed amount of resources. So they have to move it around. And if you have a lot of people doing administration and mundane tasks, give them digital solutions. It's going to take some time to implement and perfect, but it's probably a 90 to 180 day process. And then they can go and focus on revenue growth and customer generation and not back office administration.
Chances are, though, given it's an SME, perhaps smaller workforce, they might have people doubling up. So one person's doing multiple roles. But of course, still those digital solutions will help.
Yeah, I think that's the identity and the makeup of an SME. Everybody wears multiple hats.
All hands on deck. Yeah. So few hands, though.
Yeah, I know. And maybe you kind of look and go, wow, we've got an opportunity here because we have people that are capable of doing many different things. So let's give them an opportunity to take on the digitization. Let's teach them. Let's go out to the digital platforms that are available and say, what education can you give our teams? Because they're capable of doing it. And then it's a matter of swapping hats. Like it's like, okay, let me drop this administration piece. This is not value add. But if I can bring in digitization to the business, I can really help us grow.
We're speaking to Kevin Fitzgerald, who's Managing Director for Asia at Xero. We've been hearing, or I just read somewhere today, lots of buzzwords thrown around, if you will. But how exactly to do it, big question mark still, like practice agility, be innovative, stay ahead of the curve, that sort of thing. So you've got to help us out, Kevin. How do we do those things? Practice agility and be innovative.
Yeah, I think practice agility, and you're right, they are buzzwords, but when you simplify them down, practice agility is being who you are as an SME. We just spoke about wearing different hats. You're already agile, you're already capable, but now it's going in search of more and more education to actually help you develop that skill. And the difference, Howie, nowadays is technology platforms like Xero, like our ecosystem partners that do payroll, our inventory management, our point of sale. A lot of our strategy is based on education. And a lot of our strategy recognizes that we need to spend time with SMEs, educating them, and then we will get the benefit of that later when they're educated on our tools. And we don't charge for that education. And I'd speak on behalf of our ecosystem as well. Like a lot of them don't charge for that education, whereas 10, 15 years ago, there was pretty big fees, to go to the big technology firms and say, we want a day of training or we want an implementation, and then you get a big bill. And I think SMEs need to understand that that world has changed and the dynamics of the relationship with technology providers has totally changed. It's all about education and supporting SMEs rather than selling them a static product and then leaving. It's an ongoing relationship.
Are we still at a point, though, Kevin, where there are some, what people have called digital inerts or something, non-starters, if you will, that they've not yet recognized that you've got to digitalize?
Yeah, and there always will be. And, I look at the technology adoption curve in a lot of cases, and at the start you have the early adopters and at the end you have the laggers. But what happens is that layers up each time. So when the majority have adopted something, the laggards tend to die off, and then a new phase of technology adoption happens again. And that means you got to keep on top of it, Howie. And that's the hard thing, I think, for businesses is this a treadmill of adoption? Hopefully not, but hopefully it gets you into a mindset where you're thinking about, okay, we've done this once, we can do it again. There's lots of help out there to lean on. There's lots of partners that we can work with. And I do believe that there will always be people who will not adopt. That's fine. But they probably won't have a really healthy business in 3 to 5 years.
But it sounds like that's the first step. If we go back to how we were talking about strategies and prioritizing them, that one might be the first step, yes, before we talk about building that goodwill that you also mentioned.
Yeah, like it's really like the first step is, for me, I'm very education driven, you know, and I see SMEs that come to us and say, wow, we implemented Xero and we thought we were digitizing our accounting, but it led us on this pathway to learn more about our business. And then we start to digitize more and more. And,
they got hooked on it.
Yeah, maybe with a reason for it, I'd like to think so. But when I think about that SME in the circle, and they start to see the bank digitized and the government and consumers and suppliers, and then they digitize, and then the benefits grow around it. And that's just a fascinating process to see. And I get it all the time. Like people say, wow, we digitizing accounting was probably, you know, not the most exciting thing that we thought we were going to do this year. But the impact of digitizing our business has been way bigger than we ever expected.
Do you think there's enough focus on SMEs? Lots of economies are based in SMEs.
I actually think there is. Like, and I think there's never been a time where there's more really dynamic businesses like Xero and a lot of our ecosystem that have got the back of SMEs. Like if you rewind 10 years, 20 years ago, it was all about big business. But now there's a lot of big businesses like ourselves trying to solve those problems for SMEs. And, you know, you read about the level of employment and GDP contribution from SMEs in each country. And it's fascinating. It's huge. It's always the majority. And I think now we're starting to see SMEs can level up and you know, not grow to the same size to be huge businesses, not all of them, but they can actually get the access to the same types of services and technologies that big business used to have special access to because they had a lot of money, you know.
We've been speaking with Kevin Fitzgerald, who's Managing Director for Asia at Xero. Kevin, it's always fun.
Thank you.
This is Mind Your Business on Money FM 89.3.